All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Let's Face Off. It is Brad here with Calder and Jim, and
Hello.
thank you guys again for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'm talking about everyone else. You guys don't matter.
Oh,
Bye.
We're getting off. You know what? It's been a fun week of hockey, and it's just preseason. So, Calder and Jim, what are you feeling about the Sharks?
I'm excited for the future. I'm not so excited about the veteran leadership on the Sharks right now, but the future looks really great. So go Sharks future, but let's hope that they can, develop a little bit more and then come in. But right now it seems like they're going to probably pull a few of those top talent players and put them on the team right now, which is, I'm excited to see what they're able to do. But, you don't want to bring your young talent in too quickly. I mean, that's something you were saying about the Yotes, that they brought them in too quickly. And I think the Sharks at this point might be handcuffed in the fact that they have to bring some young talent in. You Jim?
I'm feeling very similar. I think the veteran core is not impressing me right now. I also feel like the veteran core may not have hit their stride yet, knowing that so many pieces have changed since last year and the year before, when they actually were a core of players, and now they're just sort of pieces that are being put together. I am really excited to see some of the young talent coming up, though, and I think it's great that even William Eklund. Don't even know the names yet, but William Eklund already potentially slotted to be with the big club for the start of the season. Maybe not on the ice, but at least practicing with them on sort of the practice squad, or may get cut late in the next week or so to the Barracuda. Either would be a really exciting way to see him develop. I still want to see and hear more from the veterans. I saw all the press conferences we saw were great. They all said the things that you expect them to say coming off the off season. But now let's see the skills that they've been paid so well to produce with, and let's see them lead these young guys to, if not a winning season, a competitive season.
I'm muted. Sorry about that. I haven't been paying too much attention to any other team other than the Kraken, which is surprising because I wanted to watch a little bit of the Coyotes games, but they were all streaming. There wasn't any TV coverage, and even some of the games weren't even streaming. So as far as the Kraken go, it's both good and bad. And I know it's preseason, and I know there's going to be a ton of cuts, but there's a couple of players who I feel are just taking ice time away from other players that can still make an impact. And I get that you want to give these players an opportunity, but it felt like they kind of didn't even deserve to be on the ice. If we go back to last week, I had the opportunity to actually go to the Kraken Community Ice Complex to watch one of the practice sessions in the morning. First of all, that building is gorgeous. It's such a beautiful building. And what I liked about it is they didn't build it just for the Kraken to practice there. They truly built it as like a community iceplex. There's 3 sheets of ice there. When the Kraken were using 2 of them, the other ice was still being used by, at that time, it was figure skating. There was like figure skating practices going on there, but it was a full Rost all day. The ice was kind of packed with open skates or junior hockey or learning to skate, or like I said, figure skating. So just phenomenal with what they did in that facility. So in that practice, as well as the first game, I've got to say, Brandon Tanev just has stood out for me. He was never really on my radar other than his bug-eyed pictures, his huge eyes,
ghost pictures.
Yeah, but I mean, in the practice session, that first game, he felt like he was skating on a different gear than everyone else that was on the ice. He was fast. He was checking hard. And even in that second game that we just got destroyed by the Oilers, he was still skating hard. Like, he was still trying to make plays, even though the rest of the team almost gave up. I'm not saying they did give up, but they were outclassed. It was definitely a different skill level team that the Oilers put on the ice compared to what the Kraken did.
I looked at those two rosters. It was pretty embarrassing what the Seattle Kraken put on the ice compared to what the Oilers put on. That was like the actual Oilers team playing there.
Yeah.
And then it was like the Kraken's whatever team playing against them. And you could, from what you told me, you could tell.
It showed. It was pretty bad. And again, it's preseason. That's what it's for, to kind of truly weed out some of the players who either need more time up in, or I shouldn't say up, down in, their respective clubs, or just cut them, waive them. Another standout was actually Joey Daccord, the, I guess, third string goaltender. And I mean, I know that Grubauer and Drager are number one. I understand that, but he stood out to me. So I feel confident now if for some reason one of those two were to go down, he would fit in nicely. I don't think we would have any sort of loss and goaltending ability to having Joey Daccord come up. And then just one more was Will Borgen. I'd never heard the name. Watching him on the ice, Buffalo was hiding him or something. Like, I don't know what was going on. He only has 14 games of experience. He was a 4th round draft pick. So that alone was not anything to be really impressed with, but his play is not something, or not what you would expect from someone who only has 14 games experience. He stood out, like, in every game he's played. I expect good things from him. So I don't know. Like I said, either Buffalo was trying to hide him, or he just his game really developed over the summer and the off season. So that's for me with the Kraken. And again, I haven't watched too much of the Coyotes, so I can't really comment too much on them. I'm looking forward to the season to start for them for sure, so they can actually be on TV. But
speaking of TV, I wanted to mention one thing. Sharks broadcast needs to get their act together on their preseason. The Kraken has shown I know they're the new team, the new hot thing, but the Sharks still have yet to have any kind of broadcast. Yes, they've been on NHL Network for those that have NHL Network, but I honestly don't know what channel I'm supposed to be watching the Sharks on when it comes up in the season at this point.
You'll watch them on the traditional NBCSN.
NBCSN actually still has them?
The local broadcast coverage is their broadcast affiliate with the Sharks is NBCSN or NBC California. The national broadcast rights for the NHL is what changed, not the local. So just like you used to get a mix of, even though NBC had the contract, you'd get a mix of like Fox Sportsnet for certain teams, and other teams would be on an NBC affiliate. Now they are all it's going to be defaulted for the local area to the local broadcast affiliate. Which is good news for anyone living in the Bay Area that wants to watch the Sharks. Probably not great news if you're a Sharks fan outside of the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That said, we live in the heart of Silicon Valley, and there is absolutely no reason why every game shouldn't be live streamed in some manner. I don't care if there's audio or not. Just let me watch it on the screen. That's all I want to do. I will listen to the radio hosts, Dan Ruzanowski, talking through the whole game if I can watch it. And the radio network does a great job of broadcasting for a radio audience, but it's 2021. I can watch pretty much anything live anywhere in the world. I can even watch like live high school football games if I want to. So something like the Sharks preseason games should be a no-brainer. I don't know. Sharks, let's get going. Brad, you're probably still on mute.
I'm not muted. Sorry. I was just gonna say, like I was saying to Calder last night, I think it was, they're filming the game anyway. Like, That's what I'm not understanding is, even like you said, even if they just put in a no sound feed that you could just at least see the action on the ice. I'm not understanding that. Like you said,
but I mean, even still, like you're saying, they have video of the game. At least put highlights of the game. So if we can't watch it live, at least let us see how the goals are scored, or what the goalies did, or how the play was played. Make a little like a I don't know, just a recap of the game, and so that we can see it. That's what I'm looking for. The highlight reel.
Yeah. I still think, though, if they're going to tape the game for Toronto to have and be able to review, just throw it up there. Nobody cares if there's no sound to it. You know, some of it might not be appropriate for broadcast if you just give the rink sound.
Just give it mute then.
Yeah. Or after the game's over, you could put up the entire video synced to the radio broadcast.
Yeah.
So at least you can go back and watch it. Because right now, all we have to go on for stats are the actual score sheet, the box score. And that really doesn't give you an idea, or, you know, the quote unquote eye test for these guys that are coming up, the young talent that we want to see. It doesn't give us anything even for the veteran talent to see how they're skating or what kind of shape they've actually showed up in. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The internet exists for this exact reason.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any reason why we're not watching a game if we want to watch a game at this point.
And I'd even be okay paying a minimal fee just to watch preseason live streams, as long as it's well produced.
Speaking of well produced, what do you guys think about TNT tonight? That's their first broadcast ever as a hockey.
Well, I watch part of both games that are available right now. So I watched part of Boston and Philly, and I watched part of the dreaded Kings and Knights. And it's sort of
I want to know what let's find the descriptive word for the Knights that you were about to say, because I was waiting for something good there.
I was hoping both would lose. I'm still hoping. The game's still on.
Yep.
It's actually being played in Utah at the home of the Utah Jazz, which is weird to me.
So Phoenix is going to Utah. That's what you're saying.
I mean, there's a market, but it probably now infringes on the TV rights for the Kraken. So after watching, let's call it almost an entire game worth of broadcast and the intermission broadcast from TNT, I am not displeased. I think that overall, they've actually done a pretty solid job. The hosts are engaging. They're faces that we know really well from the hockey world. So it's very familiar to tune in and see these guys behind the desk talking. And then the voices on the national broadcast were recognizable voices, right? We know who they are. They've called hockey games in the past. We've all heard them. So overall, the coverage was as good as NBC's coverage. Actually, a little bit better. I would say
it's better. Yeah, already.
Simply because I didn't have to hear personal stories of how this one person knew every single player and every single coach, and how they all went to school together, or played together, or coached together at some point, and then he wasn't a coach anymore.
And we know who you're talking about when you're saying that.
Yeah, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So far the broadcast was solid. I would like to see a different set of teams, because ultimately they obviously are broadcasting East Coast teams, Boston and Philly, and they're going to get, the same type of treatment that they've always gotten, which is a preferable treatment. And then they are broadcasting Las Vegas because Las Vegas somehow draws in ratings, even though it was Las Vegas versus the Kings, which should in all rights not be at all an interesting game. Strangely enough, the Kings were up by 2 when I last saw the score. So
still up by 2.
Weird.
I don't know. The Kings, I think the Kings are going to be one of those deep teams that you aren't expecting to do well, and they're going to do well this season. but that's me.
Unfortunately, I didn't watch it at all, so I have nothing to comment on it.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Jim's thing and say, it was nice to see some of those old faces for NBC that you really enjoyed watching, and seeing like Keith Jones between the glass, where everyone's favorite was usually, and having like Jim said, the talent that wasn't bringing up high school stats that nobody really cares about when you watch it. And actually a player that used to play in the league and really understood how to describe what was happening to the audience. It was nice to see. So far, I'm impressed. I think there was one little glitch that I saw, and I think that's probably just a small TV glitch that I saw. There was middle of the Philadelphia-Boston game. The game was being played on the top part of the screen, and where the scoreboard and where the fans were, you could actually see on the bottom part of the screen. So it was very distracting watching the fans in the top. Yeah, it was very distracting because you could watch the hockey game going on, but the fans were at the bottom and the scoreboard was at the bottom, and it was somebody had just cropped it incorrectly. And I watched it for a good 5 minutes of this happening. I was like, what is happening? Are they really doing this right now? So it's preseason for everybody. I'm giving a pass on that, but overall, I'm pretty impressed with how they're doing it. I'm enjoying it.
What do you think, since you just mentioned the fact that it is preseason? What are all of your thoughts on the format for the preseason, having a shootout at the end of each game?
I personally would have rather them have a 3-on-3 at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe they didn't do that because they didn't want the potential for additional injuries, which makes sense. However, I think that 3-on-3 practices would be more beneficial throughout the season. So I like that they're giving the fans a little bit more, and tons of fans love the shootout, so it's just a little bit extra cheers and energy in the building at the end of the game. But I feel like that 3-on-3 would have been a better use of the time overall.
I'm enjoying the extra time, like you said, but I think 3-on-3 would be much better. I'm with Robin Leonard. I don't know if you guys listened to Spit and Chicklets podcast, but he was on there saying that he, as a goalie, hates the shootout and it should just be abolished and they should just do 3-on-3. I don't think it's just him. I think that's just around the NHL that's the feeling, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the feeling, that the players would rather play out the game, even if it's 3-on-3, to get a true ending based on whoever's more skilled than, sort of the shootout is a toss up between skill and luck. And it, a bounce of the puck and you lose it, or a bounce of the puck and you win it. And that's, that can also be said for during the 3-on-3, but it takes a team effort in the 3-on-3, and the shootout is simply something that, markets well to fans, and it markets well to the TV viewing audience because it's a controlled amount of time. They can predict roughly how long it will take to end the game. And they use it in sports simply for that fact. So they don't have to go into extra time. They don't lose the billing and the advertisement from, in between the end of the game and whatever broadcast is on next. It's kind of a money grab almost, but also it speeds up the finales. I will say I miss good rivalry games going into the second overtime in a regular season as it's coming down to the wire near the playoffs. I think that was, a really fun way to watch hockey. And sure, you're up till like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night watching hockey, but I would give up sleep for that.
I give up sleep for hockey, so that's okay.
Anyone who's ever played hockey has given up a lot of sleep for hockey.
Yeah, that's true. Any other teams that have impressed you in the preseason? Have you guys watched any other games? Have you guys watched any other teams?
I haven't really had the opportunity. Like you said, the Sharks haven't even been streamed. So getting access, knowing that TNT was, this is their first real broadcast. I haven't had the opportunity to watch any of the other games yet, But I also really can't put a lot into what we get out of the preseason. I don't think it's a true test of anything. It's kind of a jumble of what the coaches feel they need to work through, and they still don't want to show their actual hand until the season starts. So we never really get a true.
Brad brought up a good thing earlier today. He was asking me via text, do we see more cuts today, or are we going to see them play out? Because, I mean, there are only 3 preseason games left. So
Sharks
at what point... I didn't see the Sharks cut today.
They're down to 40.
Evander Kane?
No, he was not on the cut list. It was all people that were AHL transfers down, and then one getting sent back to their junior club.
Well, I was just wondering, like you were just saying, it's I'm actually distracted. I can't remember exactly what I was bringing up, but why I was bringing that question up or bringing that up.
I would just say that I think why I was asking is, I mentioned it earlier, there's some players that are on the ice that are actually taking ice time away from players who can still make an impact. And I feel like by the third game, you kind of know. I mean, I understand you might have 3 or 4 players who might be vying for one spot, but there's no way a team coming in with 38, 40 players after game 3 makes sense to me, because I don't feel how you could possibly think that 15, 20 players are vying for, I mean, if you look at the veterans on your team, 3 spots maybe? So yeah. I feel like I'm glad that there was actually a decent amount of cuts today, because that gives most teams still have 3 games left to dwindle their roster a little bit more. But I still feel like you just said the Sharks were carrying you said 40 still?
That's what the press release said.
I mean, so again, if you look at the veterans on who are going to have a spot guaranteed, that only leaves you again, like 4 or 5 spots, right? So
yeah, 3-4 spots.
You have 20 plus players vying for those spots. You're literally cutting ice time from players who probably could truly benefit from that ice time.
But do you really want to play your star players against other teams at this point? It's still preseason. You don't really need to play your veteran players. You might as well see what the rookies are able to do and put them in again. You're gonna have to keep them on the roster, though. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That's when you asked me earlier, I said they're not going to make cuts until at least tomorrow. I think most teams, because of the fact that you're gonna want to see, you're gonna know who your core group is. You don't have to play them. Yeah, it'd be good to play them against other players, try and get that rust off from the off season. But do you really need to play them? You know what you have. Like, you know who Brett Burns, Carlson, Giordano, the big names. You don't really need to play them coming up in the next 3 games.
Yeah, but
you need to know what you have in your development.
But game 2 for us, for the Kraken, was a waste in my mind. Yeah, it showcased some of the players who truly shouldn't be on the ice. But for everyone else, I mean, like Grubauer, he just had no chance. He was left out to dry.
But he also, I think he's a professional and knows this team in front of me is not NHL caliber, and I really just have to almost play like an all-star game, and where I'm just here to block a shot every so often. Get my reps in, get a few stops in, just like I said, get the rust off. Most players coming into the league, most players coming into the season right now are pretty well off, probably in good shape. Most, I'm not saying all, but I think that at that point you don't want to tire. This is going to be an 82 season game, 82 game season. That's what I meant to say. And you don't want to, wear out your goalie. You don't want to put him in an extra 4 or 5 games. You don't want to have that. So that's what I'm saying. Those few games, it's 3 games, 3-4 games, but it's still 3-4 games that don't have to put on your goalie or on those players that you expect to make the push in April. Like, if you have those guys and they're tired in April because they played 3 extra games and didn't get the extra rest, you've kind of screwed yourself at that point. Might as well find out what you have down deep in the core.
We also don't know.
It was Drager, not Grubauer, by the way, but sorry.
We also don't know exactly what the coaching staffs are asking for. They might be putting a team on the ice because they want to see chemistry, between these guys, or they want to see leadership skills from the young talent and assess what they have coming up, because they already know that the future might only be 1 or 2 years for a lot of these veterans, and then they're going to have to replace them or possibly trade them. And for the Sharks, they're carrying 21 forwards right now and 14 defensemen with 3 goaltenders. So it's, while the roster itself is pretty obvious, the top 6 forwards are probably pretty obvious to everyone. The bottom 6, I really think, are a competition right now, and guys that we'd seen the last 2 years may not be making the team if they're not competing at the level they need to, because I don't think that they're afraid this year to say, if you can't produce, you don't have a spot. The defense is a little more locked up. There's a whole lot less question marks about that, right? I think they have one slot that, if I read down the list, though, we've got Brent Burns, Mario Ferraro, Erik Karlsson, Radim Shimmick, Mark-Edward Vlasic, and Nikolai Knizhov were all kind of mainstays last year, right? So that's 6 defensemen. And then did they all potentially have opportunities to get pulled for someone else? Sure. Jacob Middleton comes to mind. Ryan Merkley comes to mind. Players that are coming up. But I don't think that you're gonna take any of them out of the top, the 6 defense positions. And then we're all pretty sure that it's going to be Hill and Reimer as the goalie tandem. So I don't see a lot of options for the defensive side of the puck. I do see a lot of competition for the forwards.
I agree with that. I think the forwards, but I'm gonna say I honestly don't feel the top 2 lines are set in San Jose. You have Couture with Hurdle, and I'm going to say Dahlin has been really impressive. I don't know about you. I know you have. I haven't really been able to see it. I saw one game of NHL Network, and he was everywhere. Him and Eklund have been everywhere on the score sheet. So I think those 2 definitely have a chance of pushing LeBlanc, pushing Meyer down, and then after that, like I said, I think the top 2 lines, if they can't fill those top 2 lines with it, if the main veteran core can't fill the top 2 lines, then you're going to have a lot more competition in the bottom 2 because you're going to have to push those veterans down into the bottom 2 scoring lines.
Well, and we still have other guys that are coming up fighting for forward positions, like Ozzy Weisblatt, Lane Pettersson, and then we also have the addition of Andrew Cogliano and who was it? Nick Bonino. So we've got, I think the 4 of the 6 spots on the top line are set. They may not be set in the same lines we've seen them in the past, but I think they're set. I think it's the bottom 6 and the 2 wingers that are going to be question marks for the Sharks. I don't want to go too far down because it's all speculation, and ultimately, we're cutting down to probably a total of 28, I think is the number. They carry a few guys on the side.
I was actually going to ask if do we have taxi squads again this year? I haven't actually heard anything or seen anything about that. No taxi squads?
No taxi this year.
So it's going to be, the 23 guys they dress, and 3 or 4 guys that'll be on the side.
No.
So could be interesting. Granted, with the AHL teams still kind of headed towards training camp yet, I think we're gonna, I don't know, it's going to be interesting how it all plays out. A lot of the bigger clubs we've seen in recent years are moving those teams closer, so it acts like a taxi squad, and I think that helps out the NHL team.
So one more small thing, or there's a lot more small things in preseason. We're all enjoying the preseason as much as we are. Yeah, reffing. I want to bring up one little reffing thing here. I think Brad would love to talk about this. I talked with you about it. The new cross-checking, not the new cross-checking, but it's the referees are going to be calling cross-checking a whole lot more. And they've been doing it in this preseason. Now, my question for you, Brad, is are they going to continue calling this like the way they are, or are they going to be hoping that the players will figure it out that this is no longer allowed, kind of like the holding was from back in the day when there was so much holding and like hooking and all that stuff, and it's pretty much out of the game now at this point. So first, what do you think of the new cross-checking calling? The new cross-checking calling? Yeah, I know you do. And do you feel like they're going to need to continue calling it like this, or do you think that it's going to be?
I hope so, because I can't stand, and I think I've mentioned Chara with the face cross checks a lot. He's one of the worst defender of these cross checks that are true cross checks and in the nature of the call, but they don't get called. Specifically, there'll be a player on the ice. There's a little scrum or whatever. They're trying to dig the puck out of the board, and there's a player on the ice, and you constantly see the cross check to the back when he's kneeling down, or they're fighting against the boards, and you see a guy just constantly cross checking him in the ribs. It's plays like that are not needed. And for some reason, it never got called. And I've seen it a couple of times in the games already where cross checks called that would not have been called last year. And you could tell the players were like, almost like, what, I got away for that for 10 years in my career, and now I'm getting called. So I do hope that it continues on to be called in the way it is. But I know there's a lot of veteran players who are used to playing that style, that it's going to take a while for those guys to get used to it. And it might be kind of a brutal, ugly first couple weeks of the season with these cross-checking calls, because it's going to be a lot. We've seen.
But go ahead. But I was just saying that's why I brought up the whole holding and cooking thing. Like back in early 2000s, there was the change in the calling by the refs of hooking and holding and all that stuff. It used to be this very slow kind of game, and now that's all gone. And it only took, as I recall, like half a season. Like you said, it's going to be the first half of the season is going to be really ugly and really kind of like, why am I getting called for these things that I never got called for? Do you think they're going to need to continue calling it? Or do you think the players are going to be able to?
Just really quick, and I'll let you go, Jim. But how many times do you see where you've got a defender in a center or a winger in front of the net, and the defender literally just clears the front of the net with a cross check, and it doesn't get called? And I know they kind of singled that one out when they released that video, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, about like, this is an example of a cross check that's going to get called.
It was really nice to see, by the way.
and yeah, so it's like that play happens so much where you're literally cracking someone's rib with a cross check and it doesn't get called, and you're clearing the front of the net out while doing it.
I think, and I remember, Calder, when they did impose the holding penalties, and then even recently, last year, I want to say, or 2 years ago, they went heavy into the hooking penalties, where as soon as the stick was leveled at the ice, if you touch the hands, it's a hook. Yep. And while it didn't always work out in my favor, it's definitely nice to see it more consistently called. I'm always an advocate for more consistent reffing. I don't care if it's against my team or for it, as long as it's consistent. I mean, of course I care. Like, I would like to get away with everything and win every game, but that's not going to happen. But if it's consistent, then you can already know that it's the player doing it that is getting called for a legitimate reason, not just because the ref suddenly felt like interjecting themselves into the game. That said, I am fully behind the fact that we need to get those egregious cross checks in front of the net out. We need to get those, potentially dangerous ones at the sort of at the boards, but more at the where the stanchions are for the benches. You'd see guys skating off to get to the bench and someone just give them a shove into the, in the back and, just skate on by past them. That sort of stuff needs to be out of the game. It's not part of the skill. It's part of a bygone era that had goons running the league and players just trying to survive. I will say that I did not see the video that you all were talking about that was released, but I think it's part of the video I caught on the broadcast today that they actually covered. They brought on a guest that I didn't catch the name of, and they showed a video, and it was right as I tuned in, so I couldn't even rewind to watch the rest of it. But it was showing example 1, example 2, example 3, example 4. And they were talking about how these examples aren't going to be part of the game anymore. You just can't do it. And I think it's great. I think it's great that TNT was already on top of getting that out, having it shown in the preseason, making sure the fans know that this is something the refs are going to pay attention to. Again, the refs are human mostly, but if they call it consistently, I'm going to be okay with it. I do think, though, that midway through the season, we're going to see that dip of, we kind of got away with it for a little bit. And then something's going to happen and they're going to have to start calling it again, because the players will adapt to how the game is called, no matter how you want to call it. If you want to call a really tight game and keep it clean, they'll learn how to play that way. If you're going to play it a little bit fast and loose, more like they did in last year's playoffs, then they're going to learn to play that way too. But as long as you're consistent, the players will play mostly within the rules.
I just want to interject real fast. Did either of you guys listen to the Tim Peale interview?
I did not catch it.
So Tim Peale is, if you guys don't know, was a referee. And March last year in the season, he was on a hot mic and was heard talking about, I want to call a penalty here so that we get one down. And if you guys haven't heard this interview, it's a really good interview, and it really kind of brings you into you were talking about stuff about refereeing and like how referees think, and he really brought it in there, and I really connected with it, understanding of how I felt terrible because the guy pretty much lost his job from this hot mic. He was set to retire, but I mean, it's a great interview. It's on a Daily Faceoff podcast, not Let's Faceoff podcast, but Daily Faceoff podcast. And it's a great interview. They brought him on as a referee for talking about rules that might have happened during the season coming up. I'm excited to see what Tim Peale brings in. I didn't want to go too far off, but you said we're saying things that I was like the hearing a referee point of view of that stuff.
Honestly, when Jim was talking about different refs calling it different ways, Tim Peale was the first one on my mind. You might respect him, but I can't stand Tim Peale. I'm just saying, I respect him from the interview that he gave us, that he gave those guys, and really kind of brought it down to earth of, we're all human in this one way. I'm 5'8" and I'm trying to look over 6'2", 6'3" players, and they're all trying to do something. And the one time that he made a mistake and felt like he needed to defend his mistake, he had other referees there that, I can't remember the other referee that was playing with him, but he was trying to defend his, as you're supposed to, as a ref, you're supposed to make the call, your call. Like if you make the call, you make the call, and that's your call. That's what you saw. And that's the way it is. Yes, I know it sucks, but he really, you guys got to give it a listen. I know you were saying you can't respect him, but it was just nice to hear somebody coming down to our level and talking about what happened. I don't know if you look at a lot of the controversial calls that have happened in his career it's come from him. So you're talking about refs they have to call what they see. But if you literally are looking for a call, which is what he was doing, and he was caught doing that, that's why he lost his job. He's literally trying to find a call to make up for it. That's not how it should
Well, give
be.
it a listen, because he defends himself very well. Let's just put it that way.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Unless Jim has something to say with Tim Peale. Nope.
I'm not getting in the middle of this one. Sounds like y'all have very strong
Differing
opinions, and I could care.
No, yeah. I mean, just give it a listen. It's a great interview. Let's talk about the NHL offering up the top 1 or 50 players in the NHL right now. We'll talk about the top 10. How about that? Because the top 50 is kind of whatever. But top 10, do you guys have see or know of any players that you maybe think should be there, shouldn't be there, got the snub? What do you guys think?
I'm going to be real honest. The one that surprised me didn't make the top 10. I think it was number 17, was Alexander Ovechkin. I don't care how old that guy is. He produces like a machine. He is a top 10 player in the league, even at 50 when he's going to eventually retire. I get why he didn't make the top 10, right? These are mostly guys that are younger than him, that are flashier than him right now. They're making names and have an upside, but I think Ovechkin deserves to be top 10 in this list.
He was top 10 in this list. He was number 8.
I must be looking at a different list.
He was not. Ovechkin.
He was
17.
Not.
Yeah,
Is
no,
he?
I've got Victor
Hedman
as
is
number 8.
8.
I must have the old list up here on this one. Yeah, I have the old list right now. Sorry, I'll find the new list.
So the countdown from 10, Brad Marchand at 10, Artemi Panarin at 9, Hedman at 8, Vasilevsky at 7, Austin Matthews at 6, Sidney Crosby at 5 somehow, Nikita Kucherov at 4, Leon Draisaitl at 3, Nathan McKinnon at 2, and Connor McDavid at 1. Big surprise, right? Edmonton's like fancy can't make it in the playoffs guy. I will say I read through all 50. I was a little sad that no one from my team made the top 50. I know no one from Brad's teams made the top 50 either. And so for that, I felt a little remorse. But a lot of these guys deserve it. Calling out and picking the top 10 players from a league full of elite stars is darn hard. I will say, sure, all of these guys deserve to be top 10. And a bunch of the guys that didn't make top 10 deserve to be top 10. I don't have a lot of feelings because these guys are all big names that we know. I think, Sidney Crosby, does he deserve to be top 10? Right now, I don't think so. I don't think he's contributing in a meaningful way. He's not even starting the season. And
that was the one of the top 10. That was kind of the one that I was a little, you're right. All of these players, the top 50, technically you could make a case for in some way or another that they're a top 10 player. They're the elite 50 players in the league, in the world. But for Sidney Crosby, he had a decent year last year, but in my mind, if you're looking at top 50 right now going into this season, he's not top 10. If you look at pretty much 11 through 20, almost any one of those 11 through 20 could take his place and not bat an eye. I'm not going to go through them all, but literally like every single one of those. For example, you mentioned Ovechkin. It's true. Mitch Marner, I know he didn't have a great season, but he still put up a ton of points. Calder, you're shaking your head. He had a great season. It's just because the Leafs didn't have a good.
I'm shaking my head only because of the fact that team in Pittsburgh is built around Sidney Crosby.
So
And that team in Pittsburgh has been great with Sidney Crosby. They have made it to the playoffs. They have won 3 Stanley Cups with Stanley. Yeah, but he's also been injured. Sidney Crosby been injured a lot too. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend the top, putting him in the top 10. I think he doesn't deserve top 5. I think he's still in the top 10. But I'm just shaking my head saying that this guy is. I think he's a generational talent, and I don't think his generation is done yet. Is what I'm saying. I don't think that you can move on from. Yeah, I don't think you can move on from saying that he's not in the top 10 anymore.
I think you can, but I think he's still he's a top 25 for sure. But I don't think for the start of the 2021 season, you rank him as number 5 when he's not even starting. I think if he comes back and plays at a number 5 level, he's there. I don't see him making the impact of a number 5 overall in a league of the most elite players if he's going to miss the first 6 weeks.
I agree.
So you're basing it off the season that hasn't happened yet, is what I'm saying. I'm basing it off the last season of what he did.
I mean, what was last season? I think it's got his stats in here, but
I think he was like 9th or 10th in
he
points.
was 10th in the league in points.
Just saying, you can't take somebody out that's 10th in the league in points out of the top 10.
Well, you have people who are ranked better than him that are not in the top 10. That's my point.
I'm just saying, he's not top 5. I'm saying that they did misplace him, but I don't think he drops out of the top 10.
Okay.
I don't think there's anyone from 11 to 20 that takes his spot. For a guy that's pretty much put that team on his back and said, "This is my team. I will take this team no matter what it is."
But I guess my argument would be, I would flip-flop him then with Ovechkin.
You feel Ovechkin is more of a team player for the Washington Capitals? It's not just about Ovechkin. I'm a Washington Capitals fan. I'm just saying I feel Ovechkin is more of I'm a Ovechkin fan. This isn't a
team player ranking. This is a player ranking, individual. And they call out his stats and his points per game and the fact that he's old and he keeps doing it. So
it's not that. What is he?
Literally what they call out in here. So I think, but that's kind of my original point, right? Is we could argue this back and forth because any of these guys in the top 25, in the top 20, in the top, whatever, they're freaking unbelievable superstars. Yeah. And we will just be a little more passionate about who we think is better than one another. And that's fine. I think ultimately, rankings like this are solely for the benefit of a fan who wants to feel good about their team. Yeah. Which team are you feeling good about right now?
The Kraken. Go Kraken.
But either way, I mean, it's not too late to jump on the Tampa Bay bandwagon.
Yeah, they're starting strong in this preseason. I know it's preseason, but they're 0-2 right now. So
don't worry, no one's gotten injured enough yet to wait until the end of the season to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
That comes in the first week of the real season. So I think the list is, it's fun, right? I noticed that they went down to 50 from 100 when they did the 100 best hockey player, or like 100 most whatever hockey players of all time, and they snubbed Joe Thornton. So I think this list it's fun for the fans. I'm not going to put any stake in it, except that they've got a great group of players to choose from.
Anything from you, Brad? Or is that the end of the
That's it.
That's fair enough. You guys have any any say of what you guys think about the divisions? We won't go into teams yet. I think going into team by team is a little bit premature, but do you have see any like divisions that we can rank 1 to 4 maybe? Of what division you feel is going to be the strongest comparatively speaking to the Pacific? The fourth place of.
I don't know. I think it's still too early. I know that. I think the Pacific Division's not going to be that good. There's a couple of good teams in there for sure, but as a whole, it's not going to be good. Central is going to be pretty good. And I think you got to go East is going to be 1, 2, and then Central and then Pacific third or fourth. I mean,
I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Metro and then what do they call themselves in the next part? The Atlantic?
Atlantic.
Yeah, Metro, Atlantic, Central, and Pacific. I think the Pacific is going to have to figure it out, the teams in there. And I think the team that's going to run away with it is going to be Vegas, and we'll see who can keep up with Vegas.
Yeah, I've kind of got the Metro and the Atlantic in sort of a coin flip for which one's going to be better. I think they both have a ton of upside for a lot of their teams. You know, the Atlantic's got Panthers, Lightning, Maple Leafs, Canadians as sort of standouts that should be really good. And then a couple of teams. Oh, and
Canadians?
Canadians are going to be good.
They're not going to be that great.
Yeah, they are.
I think that they're going to surprise people. I think what they did last year was not a fluke.
Total fluke.
Well, there are some people.
I will go
disagree with you, and a whole
I
lot of people
know
in Toronto that would agree with you.
I have a feeling that it was just a complete fluke what happened. They've rode it out. They did great. They rode a hot goalie, and I don't think it's going to happen again this season. They're in a much tougher division. They're playing in the division with Boston. They're playing in a division with Tampa, Florida, Toronto, and who knows? Ottawa even is better, in my opinion. They're not.
Are you kidding?
Ottawa is better at this point.
No, they're not.
No, they got
Yes.
here.
They lost so many players in the offseason.
Ottawa.
Just wait. You'll see.
Move on.
Don't worry.
A specific thing with
Buffalo's
Ottawa.
still in that. Buffalo's still in that division.
Let's move on.
Yeah,
to
it's a free. That's a free
Ottawa.
win.
Metropolitan. I mean, there's a bunch of good teams. A couple of unlikely contenders. The Central. They're always going to be competitive. Avalanche being probably the one that runs away with that one. I don't think anyone beats the Avalanche this year in the Central. Maybe the Predators make a run for it. The Wild, actually, Calder's dark horse from last year, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be a dark horse this season.
I don't think so.
Losing Suter is going to be a big hit to them, and I don't think they have anything to replace that yet. So we'll see how they do.
And then a bunch of the rankings still have the Blackhawks at last in the division, which I think is a mistake to put them at last. But I don't think they're contending this year.
They're going to contend this year.
I disagree.
Those are my big predictions this year. You got Montreal not making it. You got Chicago making it.
I agree with Chicago. I think they'll be good. I think we said it last podcast that Fleury's going to play lights out, and he's going to.
And you got Taves back. He played his first game last night. And
so anyway, back to what I was going to say about Ottawa. Brady Tkachuk, they still haven't even signed him. And Ottawa's not even at the minimum. What are they doing? Ottawa is literally.
They're waiting to give Brady a big payday.
They're like 400,000 under the floor.
But don't worry, Pierre Dorian has said.
You were saying last podcast that they said they're already done.
They're done. They're ready to win.
Maybe they're looking to re-sign Carlson.
Take him
They
back.
can have him.
Take him back.
And no surprise to anyone, I definitely think the Pacific is the last place division. I'll agree with you. Golden Knights are going to be the top. I think Oilers might. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the impact of the Golden Knights losing Fleury and the impact of them losing their emotional support of Ryan Reeves.
I'm actually excited to see the Pacific a little bit. I said the Pacific is going to be one of the boring ones to watch, but like you said,
it's going to be a dogfight.
Vegas lost a lot of talent this offseason. I don't think they really put much into them back into the system. You know what I mean? And like you said, Fleury's gone. Reeves is gone. You know, you always had that inkling when you played against Vegas, you couldn't do the things that you wanted to actually play because you had Ryan Reeves looking over your shoulders, no matter what it was. And you always had that feeling that Fleury had a chance of stealing a game. I don't know. Brad was saying the Oilers looking good. They still are not very deep in goal. Mike Smith has never impressed me. I'm sorry, Oilers fans. You guys have not done anything with the most important position in the game. Ducks have not done much. They're relying on or hoping that their young talent is going to come up. LA has a chance of moving up the ranks in the Pacific, but I'm excited for the Sharks because I think that they have a chance of squeaking in again.
Well, and like we talked about last time, the Canucks haven't even signed
Hughes and Pettersson.
Yeah, like two of the big guys that they need.
There is reports on both of them tonight. Hughes at 6 years at 7.75 and Pettersson 3 years at 8.
How do they afford that?
I was just going to get to that. Right now, they only
13.
have 13.7 cap. So they're short two-ish million. So they're going to need to make a move, whether that's a cut or trade something.
Sounds like a trade.
So it hasn't been signed, but both of those players have been kind of Twitter's blowing up about those two. Again, that was Hughes at 6 years at 7.75 and then Pettersson 3 years at 8. So 15.7 total. And again, Canucks only have 13.7 cap. So they don't have room for it. They got to make something up.
They both have been shipped back to Vancouver. From what I last heard is that they both went back and to start playing again. So something's definitely happening over there, but
yep.
I don't know how they're going to make it work.
Brady's all alone in Michigan now.
He's Michigan by himself.
Yeah.
That's all right. He's probably hanging out in the college dorms.
So let's talk one small last thing before we head out of here, guys, because it's starting to get a little late. Coyotes and the dress code. They're the first team to relax the dress code of the NHL. What do you guys think about the relaxation of the dress code?
Wearing a suit in Arizona sucks.
Is that what you think it is all about?
No, but this is just one of those things that, you know, we've talked about similar traditional hockey stances on things over the many podcasts we've had now. Some of it has been sportsmanship. Some of it has been media focused or social media focused. This is just another one of those things that the game is evolving. I don't know if it's better for the game, but it definitely will allow fans to more closely relate to the players because they'll be walking in sweats and a t-shirt instead of, or whatever their new dress code policy actually is, instead of suits. I really like the suits. I think that the players look good. It gives them a chance to many of them really like wearing something fun and stylish at the same time. I think it lets some of their personality come out. You know, I think back to like Tomas Hertl and some of his very festive suits that he'd wear for the holidays or for random times, or like, you know, Brent Burns would always do something interesting. Erik Karlsson would always look sharp. So, and then, I mean, watching like Marc-Andre Fleury walk in, or Henrik Lundqvist was another one, always dressed to the nines. Like those guys did not disappoint when it came to dress up and show up. But I understand it. The game's evolving. So if it's what the fans want, let's give it to them.
I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what other teams follow suit. Yeah, you're welcome for that one, guys. And I think this is going to open it up. I think that, a lot of fans have asked for how do the players feel about playing in this league, and they don't feel like they've really gotten much from the players because they're always kind of rigid about their ways. And I think allowing the players to kind of show more about themselves, kind of like how the NBA has been. I mean, the NBA has no real dress code right now, but you get to see how they really like to dress, how they really like to look. And I feel that that's a good thing for the NHL. I think that's the first step. Yeah, I get it. Being dressed to the nines, being dressed nice is kind of always been a standard of hockey. But I'm kind of expecting and hoping that the players themselves will take it, that they still need to dress nice, but at least put their own flair on it. They don't have to dress in suits. I think some still might, but who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I like the way that they're going. You were talking about Leonard earlier. People are starting to like him because he's candid with his talking. He actually gives personality to his interviews instead of, just canned answers that all of the players really do. And I think it's the same thing with all the suits. It's a holdover from almost a stuffy type of nature attitude. And I know you have some standouts, you mentioned Lundqvist and stuff like that with, some of these guys are rocking $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 suits and they look amazing. But for the most part, it's all the other guys, they're just wearing a suit because they have to wear a suit. Give them the ability to have a little bit of personality. You indicated kind of connect with the fans. It's a way for fans to see what the players like off the ice too, whatever outfit that is. If someone wants to wear a specific shoe, maybe that shoe would get popular. I don't know. I like it. I think it's a way for the team to allow their players to loosen up a little bit and not be so rigid.
Yeah. I mean, I'm anxious to see how it goes. I think we're going to learn a lot from the one location doing it. I just, it's kind of funny because I've got the both of you taking the approach of let's see how this goes. And yet a couple of podcasts ago, we were at odds because of the humble nature of players and how they were presenting themselves on the media, and how I was saying that the sport hasn't evolved. So we're flip-flopping back and forth on the sides of this coin, that I find kind of interesting, because I would actually think then that you're going to see more people presenting themselves on the media more to their standard than if now their dress standard changes and their personality is allowed to come through. More of that personality is going to come through all of the time. So be prepared if, this will be one of the many things that leads down a path where we're going to get more of the NBA style personalities, hopefully without the flopping.
Oh, that's definitely a point that I didn't even think about. You're right, completely. When you said that, I was like, yeah, totally. That we are heading down that direction of the personality wise. I feel like hockey players themselves take a little bit more serious. And don't get angry at me. I'm not saying NBA players don't take their game serious, and it could be because they have such rigid rules of dress codes. And maybe, the only team that will actually be taken seriously is any team that's GM'd by Lou Lamoriello. because he's definitely not taking that away. You know that for sure. He's definitely saying suits and no beards and no mustaches the whole way through.
Right. The Yankees of hockey. I don't know. It'll be interesting. As I'd said before in other podcasts, anything that evolves the game to grow the sport and its popularity with fans, I have to support because it is the future of the game. It's how we survive. It's how we become an even greater enterprise and make enough money to maybe go past where other sports already are.
Is that going to about do it for us?
That's going to do it for us, I think.
Yeah.
We're excited the hockey's back at least.
Absolutely.
Hockey's back. And we're only going to be, we're 2 weeks out from the actual season.
Oh, I just wanted to say something. Are you guys going to watch the All or Nothing thing on Amazon Prime?
What now?
I haven't.
The All or Nothing thing from
is.
Toronto Maple Leafs. It's kind of like you know how HBO had that lead up into the Winter Classic, whatever it is? Amazon's version of it, and they followed the Toronto Maple Leafs from the beginning of last season to their choking
early exit.
Yeah, let's put okay. That's better. That's a nicer way of putting it. Is early exit of the playoffs of last season, and I'm looking forward to it. I've heard good things about like that. Really gets really into it and gets you into the locker room feel of it. So I don't know if you guys are interested in it. It's coming out tomorrow on Amazon Prime.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it. I probably will watch that, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure we're going to see some shirtless Jumbo.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I don't, I'm asking for my money back.
All right, I guess that does it. So just really quick, I wanted to you're talking about growing the game. So I'm going to kind of produce a couple of short 10-minute at most videos, just kind of breaking down some of the characteristics within hockey. You know, for example, one that I was working on today is just kind of the setup of an ice rink as for NHL, specifically North American hockey. You know, what the lines mean, what the face-off dots mean and stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of over the next probably 2 weeks-ish, hopefully, produce a series of videos that just kind of get a little bit of introduction to people who are coming to the game. Specifically, not specifically, but, you know, like in the market up here, we have a brand new team and there's a lot of questions going around on people who want to get into the sport, but honestly, it is a learning curve. I remember when I first got into hockey, watching it, I had no idea what was going on the ice. So it is a little bit of a learning curve. And that's why I just kind of wanted to produce a couple of short videos. That will be posted to the same channel right now. So if you're not subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that so you kind of get notifications when I do post those videos. Like I said, it'll just be no more than 10 minutes per video. So it's not going to be going, you know, in depth and doing a timeline from 1902 or whatever it is. So although
1880s,
maybe
thank you.
Well, what wasn't 19 Seattle won the first Stanley Cup, what, 1906 or something like that?
No,
long time ago.
It was before that.
Anyway, so again, please subscribe to this channel. Find us on Twitter at Let's Face Off or any of your podcast apps. And so I don't know if we're going to see you next week, right, Calder? You're heading
No, I probably will not be making it. I will try my best, but I'll be up in north of the border and headed towards Hockey Land.
Hockey Land.
Hockey Land. That's for Canada. You know, I'm heading up to Canada. I got to go see family up there. I haven't seen family in 2.5 years. We're headed up there to visit the wife's family, let the little one meet the great grandmother and stuff. I know she's going crazy. Let her in because apparently she's hungry. Sorry. Yeah, so I probably won't be making it. If I do make it, I'll be via my phone. So,
all right. Well, we'll see. I mean, next week might be a week because once preseason stops, it's like a week before the season starts. So there might not be a ton of news next week. We'll see how it goes. If not, maybe it'll just be Jim and I. Also, when you're coming back down through Seattle, you need to come at like October 28th so that we can go to the Kraken game. So
I don't know if I'm going to be
delay your
far.
trip up north.
Just find a reason, get myself stopped at the border for like 2 extra weeks or so.
Yeah. All right. So that about does it. We're like an hour and 10 minutes. So let's wrap this up. Anything else? I think we're good.
First Stanley Cup was March 22nd, 1894.
I mean, sorry, I just meant specifically Seattle. I think Seattle was like the first. Was it the first North American Stanley Cup? Whatever. It was like early 1900s. That's all I remember. All right.
Sure.
That'll do it. And Calder, you could start it.
Go hockey.
It's terrible. You broke up half the way too.
That's okay. That's gonna make it better. You guys can break it up and make it into a meme.
Go. I can't even do it now. Thanks, guys. We'll maybe see you next week. If not, we'll see you once the season starts. Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.